Welcome back to Outsiders on this wonderful Sunday morning. I'm Caleb Bond, and with me as ever are Rita Panahi and James Morrow. Now, there is something very sinister going on in my home state of South Australia at the moment. Adelaide may have been named the third most livable city in the world last week, but it's apparently the wrong place to be a conservative Christian. The South Australian Liberal Party has, en masse, denied the memberships of everyone who applied to join the party in the past month, about 150 people, and sent 400 more members show cause notices. Basically, they have to justify why they shouldn't be kicked out of the Liberal Party. Now, these people have committed no crime, apart from being Pentecostal Christians. And I'm no great fan of Pentecostal churches, it's all a bit happy clapper for mine. But if conservative Christians cannot find a home in the Liberal Party, indeed they are forcefully expelled from the Liberal Party, where can they find a home? The message would seem to be clear. If you are a Conservative or you're a Christian, the Liberal Party does not want you. Imagine if the Liberal Party rejected the memberships of 150 Muslims because it didn't like the look of their religion. I'm sure the lefties would have to practice some cognitive dissonance, but there would be outrage, and rightly so. But why has all this happened? Well, the South Australian Liberal Party is almost entirely run by the moderates. Bit by bit, they have taken control of every facet of the party. They run the State Council, the State Executive, they run the Women's Council. There are almost no Conservatives left in the Parliamentary Liberal Party in SA, and that's just the beginning. But as a result of this, SA's Liberal government, which, by the way, is the first Liberal government in this state in nearly 2 decades. There was 16 years of Labor government before they were elected in 2018, which you would think would give them some impetus to actually do something genuinely conservative and liberal for this state. Absolutely not. They've pursued a socially left-wing agenda without any consequences. Now, this government introduced and passed legislation that allows for late-term abortions if having the child might be detrimental to the mother's mental health. Not the typical fare of a Liberal government, you wouldn't have thought. Members of this government last week overwhelmingly backed pro-euthanasia laws. So Senator Alex Antic, a Liberal senator for South Australia, a Conservative, went out to largely Pentecostal Christian communities and told them, if you're not happy with the way this government is going, sign up to the party and make a difference. And fair enough, participate in democracy. Now, partly as a result of that, but also for other reasons that I'll explain in a minute, about 500 new members have signed up to the Liberal Party in SA this year. The membership of the party is somewhere around 5,000 people, which means those 500 new members, which would equate to about 10%, present a significant threat to the ruling moderates. 500 new Conservatives, they don't want that. So the party's executive has used the most serious powers it has to try to stack the deck and kick them all out. They ran the numbers, obviously, and they worked out they were in trouble. Women's Council is coming up, they're worried they'll take that, and there is State Council in just a week. Now, this is undemocratic, but even worse, it is open religious discrimination. The party will try to tell you that it's because some new members have spoken out against endorsed candidates, but please, that is rubbish. If that were the case, you'd expel those who broke the rules, not 500 people who happen to be Conservatives who threaten your factional power. And not all of these people, by the way, are Pentecostal Christians, and not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, they've booted out anyone who's applied in the past month, and that includes publicans and businessmen who are unhappy with the ongoing coronavirus restrictions in this state. They want to open up the pubs to 100%. No, Liberal government, we can't do that. And these people, quite understandably, are livid. Liberal MP Nicole Flint, who is a good friend of this program, has called this the most extraordinary and undemocratic act she has seen in politics. Senator Antic, as you will see in a minute when he joins us, isn't holding back on this. And plenty of other Liberals are privately outraged. One senior South Australian Liberal told me yesterday that this would start an internal war in the Liberals and had the potential to split the party in half, which is exactly what they need 9 months out from a state election. There is now talk of legal action to stop this mass expulsion. But if this goes unchecked, this expulsion of Conservatives, the consequences could be dire. This is the Liberal Party trying to silence Conservatives and silence Christians. They want to stop you and me from having a voice, banish people from this country's foremost conservative party for being, would you believe it, conservative. If the Liberal Party can get away with that, what else can they get away with?
Oh, strange times in South Australia, as Caleb just explained. Liberal Party banning hundreds of Conservatives, a lot of Christians in there, seemingly in breach of legislation governing political organisations. Joining outsiders from Adelaide now, South Australian Senator Alex Antig. Alex, what in God's name is going on in the good state of South Australia?
Well, thank you, Rita, and well said, well put. Look, I don't know. I have to say, from the outset, I obviously wasn't involved in the decision to do this. This was the decision of our state executive, and it's a decision, I might say, that comes fresh on the heels of the government's leader in the Senate, Senator Simon Birmingham, saying on ABC Radio earlier in the week that as long as people share our values and as long as they work towards the goals of the party, they are welcome. And then a day later, the Premier made similar observations, and I think he used words to the effect of the more the better, or words to that effect. I mean, after all, we're coming up into an election cycle where people are needed boots on the ground. I mean, we know how much work goes into an election campaign. So it's very, very puzzling. We also had earlier in the week the party president, Lee Davis, who came to a branch meeting out here in Waite and called for unity. And then 3 days later, all of those three persons used their votes on state executive to eject 500 Conservative Christians. I don't know. I mean, I just don't understand it. We are the party ultimately of Sir Robert Menzies. Sir Robert Menzies was a Conservative. Now, I know times were different back in those days, but ultimately he was a Christian. He was somebody that didn't see the need to bring Christianity or any form of religion directly into policy, but we are based on Judeo-Christian principles. And in my mind, this sets a very, very dangerous precedent leading up into an election cycle where Christians vote.
Now, where is the Premier Stephen Marshall on all this?
Well, as I said earlier in the week, he seemed to be all on board. He used the words, the more the merrier, or words to that effect. And then later in the week, his vote, as I understand it, on state executive was used to cancel Christians. So I don't know. He seems to have made comments along the lines of, well, that's a matter for the party machine. But let me tell you, we've got marginal seats out in Newland and King, and we've got the very, very important federal seat of Boothby coming up, all of which have significant portions and people who are out there who are church-going, who are Conservatives. And I would hate to see those seats put at risk by this decision.
James?
Is this so? I mean, we see this phenomenon with so-called moderates everywhere in the country, that they try and push out Conservatives and are more interested in fighting with Conservatives and purifying the party to this sort of Labour light, Greens light kind of mentality, versus actually taking the fight up to the opposition. Where will these Conservatives go if they don't have a home in the Liberal Party? Will they just stay home and not help on election day? Will they vote for other candidates? I mean, is it just the moderates now taking them for granted, figuring, well, they're the base, they're rusted on anyway?
Yeah, look, it's a good question, James. I mean, many of these people have, I believe, I understand anecdotally, have come from parties like Family First or Australian Conservatives and have been very glad to be able to be back into a party structure where they can, have their conservative views heard inside the party machine. Now, what actually will end up happening with those people afterwards, I don't know. I mean, I just don't see what goes on inside the party's elite machine. I don't go to a lot of garden parties in the eastern suburbs and the Adelaide Hills. I'm out there in the northern suburbs talking to people who share our values. So I just don't know. We have to wait and see, but it would be a tremendous shame if we have to go and lean on the same valiant party members this year on 2 election cycles who are running up and down polls, who are handing out how to vote cards simply because the party's executive wants to cancel Christians. I don't understand it.
Caleb?
The Liberal Party, as you say, Alex, was established by Robert Menzies, and it was an amalgamation of quite a number of right-wing conservative movements. They involved women, they involved farmers. You know, there was a large number of groups that came together to create what we have, generally called the broad church of the Liberal Party. What are the moderates in the South Australian Liberal Party actually worried about with Conservatives signing up to the main Conservative Party in this state?
Great question. I don't know. I don't know, really why that decision was made, as I said, except to say that there were suggestions that there were, people who needed to be reassured that they were pulling in the same direction as the Liberal Party. So, my understanding was that people who joined the party were all doing that simply by the act of applying for the membership and signing up online, doing whatever they do. I just don't know. I assume that for some reason this has caused the alarm bells to ring. As far as I understand, we had a situation not that long ago where a new branch president, who's a new member and signed up, who seems to be the subject of scorn because of this apparent need to change the party's views, has been out letterboxing for the candidate. These people are eager; they want to help, but they can't help if the Liberal Party pulls the rug out from under them.
Oh, Alex Antic, you've got a bit to sort out there in South Australia. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, guys.